nothing. You're old. Anyway, I'd like to welcome you all to the first Faculty Association General Membership Meeting of the year. My name is Rob Lee. I've been on the FA board for approximately 9 weeks, and I would like to say that I have not yet made the front page of the Courier, and I'm quite happy with that. Reading the front page of the Courier has been quite an exciting event the last couple of weeks. We want to start off by introducing, trying to figure out what's left on the working. The officers, the board, some of you know who used to do a lot of these emails, and you kind of wonder who that person is. There's a lot of people on our campus. So why don't we start with the president of the Faculty Association is Roger Marheim. Here. Preston Rose, is Preston here on?
No, Preston's on campus.
Oh, okay. He's the vice president and the part-time faculty liaison. Suzanne Anderson. Past president and grievance officer. Krista Walter, director. Rod Foster, also director. Rod knows a lot about the ins and outs of PCC. He's been here 5 or 10 years. You might want to ask him to give him. Okay, Paul Jarrell, the secretary. Julie Kiotis, a director, and also a grievance officer and a lead negotiator in our current negotiations process. Danny Hammond, back there. Our treasurer and also co-lead negotiator who's currently cycle negotiations. I get told earlier, my name is Rob Lee. I'm a director. Yes. John Nom, who is representing our legal counsel, our legal firm. So okay, are you ready for this? Those are the meetings for the general membership meetings for the rest of the semester. Write them down. So you can't say you didn't know. They're all up there. And I'm going to jump ahead and tell you, the way some of the thunders for later, this is all going to be on our new and improved website. We'll talk about that in a second. But these are all up here now. It's like you told us when those meetings are. Yes. Okay, witnesses. All the general membership meetings are up there now for the rest of my semester. Okay, we're going to start with some just general FA business, and then we'll get to some bigger issues as we move along. So we have a new office. We were located in the U building, which was condemned, and we were still meeting there, and we realized we were the only people there. So we sort of asked the school if could we perhaps have a new office, and they said, okay. So CC 204 is right around back here, I believe. And we're in the CC building now. So if you go to the U building, you won't be there. Okay, I mentioned the new upgraded website. Where's Melissa? Melissa Michelson, thank you. Do you want to come up and say something about it?
Okay,
Really quick.
Over there.
Use your
Okay, so I'm working on the website, changing the look of it. In addition to new look, there'll be, the function is basically to inform and share, and there will be an interactive component. I hope to get submissions from the faculty, because the union, the faculty association is the faculty, and the website should reflect that. So some of the things that I'm thinking of putting on there, in addition to what's already there, calendar of campus meetings, negotiations tab, grievance process, how to get involved and be proactive, a part-time page, interesting articles. So if you come across some articles that you'd like to share with the faculty, please, I'll request for submissions. Are they listening? Perhaps a place for us to put our past letters to the board or speeches to the board. So I'll make submissions for that. If there's anything that you don't want to have your name on, I believe that's fine. Transparency page where we can, or the faculty association can put documents on budget and meeting notes and so on. And that's for starters, and it'll be developing. So if you have any ideas, please let me know, and there will be a webmaster email or something of that sort. Okay.
Thank you. Thank you. And it does look nice. I was looking at it just yesterday. Okay, on your agenda is something called the California Community Colleges Independent Biannual Meeting. We are an independent union, as are, trying to think how many more, but there's a bunch of independent colleges, 13 have their own unions that are independent of CTA. And there's a lot of reasons if you want to ask people later, we can kind of explain why we split off from CTA a while ago. But we would like to have some FA, Faculty Association members go who aren't directors or board members. So if you're interested in going, it's in San Diego on October 8th to 10th, about a month from now. I guess check with Roger, just communicate with one of us if you're interested. We'd love to have, well, we have a limit, at least we're going to have 5 that we're going to try to support to go there. But if you're interested in being a part of that and just participating, let us know. It's not just the Faculty Association for this to do that. There's also something for adjuncts, our part-timers who are here. It just so happens that the FACCC, the Faculty Association of California Community Colleges, they're going to have their annual part-time faculty symposium here. So if you're an adjunct / part-timer and you'd like to participate in that, check in with Preston Rose on our website. I'm sure all of our email addresses are there. But if you're interested, check with him. If I say something wrong with this, Daniel, let me know. Just to let you know, there's been a problem with the school deducting dues from new faculty for I don't know how long it's been going on now. We've actually
Long enough for them to be old faculty.
long enough for them to have known, and we've actually mentioned it to them, and it didn't get corrected. So a lot of faculty have not been having that, I believe, 1% deducted. So we've sort of sent them an official notice, like dated tonight. You need to clear this up, just so you know. And that's a fairly significant loss. Per month, Danny, what do you think that we're not getting?
I don't know, but there's at least 25 full-time faculty that we're having taken out. And it's costing us probably around $25,000 a year. They have no interest in helping us.
Now, I'm going to actually turn the mic over to Roger in a second. Starting with this first one, the payroll, I think they're the payment thing, I'm excited to start, and we'll cover the next couple points.
Good afternoon, everyone. Yes, to piggyback on it, we requested back in July, when we discovered that about 25 full-time faculty who've been here 1, 2, and 3 years had not had dues deducted. And with retirements, and with that number of people, we actually have taken a real hit in dues. We also, unfortunately, many part-time faculty have lost their jobs. And from a strictly union dues point of view, that means fewer dues coming in there as well. So our due situation is probably as low as it's been in many, many years. But we do want to correct this issue with the collection of dues from particularly full-time faculty and then those new part-time faculty who also were not counted. The item number F, those of you who work summer received a check in September 5th, and we protested that because we wanted summer checks to be basically given to you in summer by mid-August at latest. So that's a dispute that we're taking in the form of a grievance to the college. Additionally, you receive, those of you who are doing any overload and part-timers, you should receive another check roughly September 5th. And that check is likely going to be one of 5. And we're also disputing that. Some of you remember in the old days, we would get paid in dribs and drabs over several different months, and you never had the same amount, and so you didn't really know if you were getting paid correctly, and you didn't really count on what was coming and so forth. So we had negotiated some years ago in the Hardash, Dr. Kostler era that the checks would be 4 equal checks for part-time and overload to be paid October, November, December, January. We're now being told by college council that STRS doesn't allow that. But you know, we've been very disturbed because we've been told a number of things about pay that simply weren't true. A year ago summer, there was a big fiasco with amount of money taken out for taxes. It was wrong. It was an internal error. Which leads me to another. A couple of you approached me and said that your check on the 5th either took out too much in the way of taxes or not enough. And so we're addressing it. I'm sorry, this is again an ongoing problem with payroll, multiple problems. and we're addressing it. Obviously, with Mr. Van Pelt gone, he was in charge of that area for a while. He's gone, and it's a little unclear who's really in charge. I think at this point it is Bob Miller, but as you know, Bob Miller is in charge of pretty much 2/3 of the campus, and oversight is really lacking. A couple of quick announcements. The FA and the Senate are working together on a joint statement of solidarity. They reached out to us this summer. We had a meeting, and it was a very fruitful, productive meeting. And I don't know if any Senate leaders are here, but I want to really congratulate Dan Healy. Thank you very much, Dan, and the other 3 Senate. AC is here. Thank you. And they reached out to us and said, well, let's just have some discussions and have a joint statement of solidarity. We have many, many common issues, and we also have parallel and somewhat separate issues, and clarifying that is very important. So I want to thank the Senate for reaching out and beginning that process, and we hope to have something very, very soon. Yes, thank you very much. So we're going to talk obviously about cuts and budget and calendar negotiations, but Santa Monica and Glendale both have cut pretty much all their classes for winter session 2013, but they have not cut the session itself. I think that's very important to keep in mind. As I understand, we are the only district of the 72 districts in the state that is cutting the winter session completely and eliminating it from our entire calendar. So therefore, we're at the FA really opposing that, much more discussion to follow. But the pattern around the state has not been to do what PCC administration has done. So I wanted to clarify that because some people know that Santa Monica was in the news and Glendale's right up the road, and we do work with them as well. I want people to start looking at the Chicago teacher strike, and that seems like a long way away, 2,000 miles away. It is a K-12 strike, but it is happening in the heart of democratic country, part of Obama's people and so forth. And it's really an interesting strike because it's not really about money, and it's a kind of issues that it's about teachers' work conditions, their job situation, their evaluations, and how their schools are run. And it's actually, I think, quite a heroic effort. It's a very significant strike. And just keep our eye on that because the issues are not that far removed from ours. Finally, we negotiate tomorrow for those that have an interest. Susanna said, put out the word, anybody wants to come, we're always welcome if you want to sit in. And it's tomorrow at 11 o'clock right downstairs in the cap and gown room. So I'm going to bring Rob back and he's going to address some issues, and then we'll get to the meat of the meeting. Thank you.
We have in the back, I believe we have one of our Hudson report, our financial statement, and those have been some questions. And one of the things that we're going to do is, after this meeting is over, because I know we're going to go the full length, Danny and some of the officers will be here until 2 to answer questions that you might have about anything, negotiations, the budget, anything like that. But we do have, I think the Hudson board is in the back of the general financial statement there. So that's available to you if you want to look at that and then ask questions. Obviously, now we're going to move on to things that you've been probably reading about and hearing a lot about. So why don't we next go to negotiations update. Danny and Julie have been spearheading that. It's been, for me, quite eye-opening. I started on July 1 and it started at 90 miles an hour, and sometimes literally my jaw would drop open at some of the things I saw. If you want to ask me, I'll tell you about stunning things that were said, done, and wow, certainly interesting. So Danny and Julie are going to come update you on where we are right now, where things stand, and then we'll go from there. Come on up.
We planned this ahead.
We teach for a living.
Okay, so yeah, the Hudson report, I think we have some copies of it back there. It is a document that we are required to give to non-members, so it is sent to them directly, but we have copies in our office, we have copies here. You're welcome to look at it anytime you want.
The negotiations, as was mentioned, Julie and I are the co-lead negotiators. We have a strong team. There's a number of people in the room. If you're in the room and you've been coming to our weekly planning meetings on Tuesdays, which are switching to Wednesdays, raise your hand so people can kind of see who's been involved. But there's a number of people that have been meeting during the week to try to figure out our strategy and what we're about. And then on Fridays, we generally have been meeting with the administration. This past week, we basically expressed our strong opposition to the administration's attempt to unilaterally impose their proposed trimester calendar. We were told that the board fully intends on implementing the tentative student calendar after October 1st. Our opposition is mainly the complete disregard for for the process, both shared governance and the negotiations. There's been no shared governance process to come up with this calendar. In fact, we sent out a letter, I believe you all received it. Julie presented it to the board, basically explaining to the board, because apparently they don't understand about shared governance, but the process it went through, and want to add to that.
And Krista happened to be on the calendar committee this year, and she co-chaired it, so if we could hear a little bit, Krista, about what happened on the actual shared governance calendar committee this year would be helpful.
Okay, well, I'm going to be repeating myself, but the actual shared governance calendar committee does not make decisions about semesters or intersessions. We make decisions about start dates and end dates. But I will say that for the duration of the year, the calendar committee met and we debated rigorously the benefits of having a break between summer session and the beginning of fall and other such matters. We worked on our calendar for an entire year. This is the calendar that everybody received. I believe it was the end of May. And this calendar went through the calendar committee and then to academic senate. It was approved by academic senate. It went to college council. It was approved by college council. It was signed out by the faculty association and it was sent to the chancellor's office. That is the calendar that we approved. So any discussion about the calendar committee approving the cancellation of winter or the tri-semester system is a myth.
Yeah, so the recommendation for the current calendar that we have was made by Dr. Roshan and this administration, and the board approved that months ago because it went through the shared governance process. And now they're trying to reverse it without going back through the same process. If you were here at the forum on Tuesday, Dr. Bell said something about, well, this calendar's been vetted for 13 months. So I talked to him after the meeting and I said, really, where? And he said, well, I have to admit, we haven't vetted it since I've been the chair or co-chair of the calendar committee, but I'm just saying what I've been told. And I said, well, you should check with who you've been told because it hasn't been vetted. So, but those are the kinds of things that are being said. It hasn't been vetted. So we do consider this unilateral imposition of the proposed trimester calendar a material breach of our contract, and we will pursue this to the full extent of the law. So we are going to pursue this. Just because they state in their handout, that it's not about weather, but just the effects, that's their statement. That doesn't make it right or legal, okay? So, but they are putting out information like that if you read the handout. It doesn't mean it's legal, and we will continue to fight it. But beyond that, you do need to understand that legal or not, the board and administration may attempt to force this calendar on us. And while we pursue legal action against them, they may try to do this. So it's our fiduciary duty to you as faculty. We represent you, and certainly it has to do with vacation time. It could be when you set your spring break, because now it's going to be 6 weeks earlier if they do actually impose this. So those types of things, classes that you were preparing, that you were planning on using that time, any effect of this kind of, if they actually do try to force this on us, we need to know what effect it's going to have on you so that we can discuss those things.
And along those lines, we've asked the district for some data that will tell us some of the financial effects how many full-time and part-time faculty were working, some of the workload issues, what number of students were being served, things like that. So we've asked them for some data. We asked for the data last Friday. At this moment, we have seen no data yet, and we're negotiating again tomorrow. So we just want you to know that I also have a list of the data that we've requested. If you'd like to see that at any time, you're welcome to look at any of that stuff, or even you can email me and I will email you the list that we've asked for.
We did ask, because we met with basically Dr. Rocha and the two attorneys on Friday for the 3-hour negotiation. And we did specifically ask him.
Talk one second about what their team used to be and what their team is now. Right.
Yeah, we used to have basically most of the vice presidents came in without Dr. Rocha, and always two attorneys. Our full-time attorney and the same attorney they used last year before we had our own full-time attorney. So they're paying for two attorneys for all the time invested in all this, an outside attorney plus our full-time Mr. Cooper.
And
now it's Dr. Rocha and the two attorneys as of Friday. That's the new team, we were told. We did specifically ask them to take the information about the calendar, because it doesn't say if, it just says it's been implemented. We asked him to specifically take that down off the website. He said he would consider it over the weekend, and instead, what we all got, or I got in my box, was a 2-page piece of information with the same information that's on the website. So instead of considering taking it off, he shoved it in all of our boxes.
And there's an ad in the Courier.
And there's an ad in the Courier.
full page,
Great.
last page.
We also did walk through our proposal. We've sent that out, I think, via email to everybody, so you should have, I believe there were some blue copies of the proposal on the table back there, so you can look at those. And we expect to go through the district's proposal this Friday. They're going to just walk us through it without discussing a whole lot, but just making sure we understand what their proposal is.
And you should know that we tried to do that one time before they put their proposal on the table. We asked them to explain it to us. They asked us if we had read it. Of course, we had all read it. Then we asked them to explain it to us, because a lot of it is very loose. And they got to the second sentence of the first paragraph and didn't know exactly what it had said, because they hadn't written it, so they didn't understand it and couldn't explain it to us. So now we're going to try again to go to the table tomorrow and have it explained.
And then one other thing, well, off the negotiation, but I just want to mention the two handouts that were back there. One is the budget presentation that was made to the Board of Trustees on September 5th, so a week ago Wednesday. This information was presented to the board, and it's basically, it's got some facts on the first page, sort of the yellow, light beige one. It's got some facts on the first page, and then it is what was actually presented with the documents that were shown to the board, discussing the fact that we actually do not have a budget crisis. And after showing them that we had a $1.8 million surplus, Dr. Rocha stated, there's just no other way to describe this than a budget crisis. So a $1.8 million surplus, in his opinion, is a budget crisis. I guess if you're used to $5.5 million surpluses, which we've had for the last 8 years, then that would be a budget crisis. The other handout has to do with the calendar. Sorry.
Describe Bill Thompson's.
Oh, well, yeah. Bill Thompson, who's one of the board members, because after we made our presentation, they had their accountant make a brief presentation. Basically, all she did was state that the budget they were presenting was legitimate. And so then Mr. Thompson did say, well, we just had a presentation here that's showing all these surpluses, and there's really no need for all these cuts. And you're telling us that there are needs for this, and this budget is illegitimate. And this doesn't make sense to me. We're hearing two different things. So there was some discussion on the board about the two, but in the end, I don't know if you want to say anything more about what they said. But
Well, no, I think that the telling thing is they agreed to all the FA's numbers.
yeah, they had no, and I, in the presentation, we said, if have any discrepancies with the numbers we're putting here, please present them. And they have no discrepancy with the numbers that are presented. So it's not like we're making up numbers, and they admit that we're not making up
That
numbers.
form where Dr. Rocha and Bob Miller signed and it's sent to the state, it says, is there a financial crisis
Right.
at PCC? And he marked no.
And they-
And then Bill Thompson or somebody questioned why you would mark no if we have this problem. And then the accountant just said, well, it's a political document.
The accountant said, well, that's just a political statement to say, because the document basically says, is your school experiencing, what are the exact words? You guys have seen it on those other things. Does the district have significant fiscal problems that must be addressed? This year, the answer is no in caps. Next year, the answer is no in caps. So they did ask them, why did you sign no if you're telling us there's a fiscal problem and we have to make all these cutbacks? And Mr. Miller actually got up and said, the reason I signed it no is because we're financially sound. That's what he said to the board. That's why he signed that way. That is actually what he said, yes.
So either the accountant is lying to the board and us, or they're lying to the state.
Well, no, what she's saying is, she was avoiding the whole argument about whether it's true or not in a financial crisis. She was just saying that the budget they created is a legitimate. It is, because you can budget X amount of dollars to things, even though she doesn't know the internals of the school. So a budget and what you actually spend are very different. And this is why it always looks like we're going to spend too much and we're going to, we need to cut back this and that, because they budget much more than they need, and they also suggest that our revenues are going to be way less than, certainly conservatively, than what they expect. And so there's always money left in these categories at the end of the year. And so the presentation, and again, it's here in writing, you can look at it, I don't want to take more time on it, but it basically, instead of looking at budget numbers, because they always compare budget with budget, let's look at the actual numbers. What are we actually spending in these things? And then let's figure out where we go from there. And that's what we were trying to do to explain to the board. So, yes.
It seems like what they're trying to do is use the budget crisis in the state and the country to kind of shove this down.
Exactly.
our throats.
Right.
And I think what we need to do is look at, and I think there's the tax proposition in November, and we do need to look at what happens if that thing doesn't pass, but, to make a plan, a vision for the future, and what is it that we want, and we're trying to move on classes for students, right, and how do we get there?
So they're using that pretense to circumvent shared governance is what they're doing.
Right, and that's exactly why we continue to press the budget thing, because the budget seems to be at the core of this. There's a crisis, so we need to do this. We have to skip all the shared governance
Are they
negotiations.
giving themselves wage increases? Is management giving
Well,
wage increases?
I know that Dr. Rocha this year will get got a $5,000 increase as of July 1. Next year, it will be $7,500. The next year, it will be $10,000. And the next year, it will be $12,500. The contract is on the website under where you see all the agendas. You can actually see his contract with
I'll
all
take
those
half
increases.
that.
So what?
I'm okay with half that.
Yeah, I know.
And all of that without our evaluation of performance.
Yes.
Yes, ma'am.
So as part of an action, could we put pressure by emailing the board as people who live in their districts and say, what are you doing? Seems like there's no real crisis here. Can we do that? Any other work action that we might be planning? Particularly if they force this down our throats, what kind of action could we?
One of the things is to sort of right at the end, what do we do? It is really your turn. Our team has done very well. Danny has completely turned the discussion on college budget around. It's now clear that college budget. The college has actually increased its reserves as it has cut classes. We are fully down 20%, about 1,000 classes since 3 years ago. And we've increased our reserves to the 22% range. It's unconscionable to be cutting classes and increasing cash. The second thing is part of this It is time for, we will continue to negotiate, we will pursue all legal avenues, we will pursue all of those kinds of usual union things. But a union is only as strong as its rank and file support, as your rank and file activism, and that is all of you. One of the things is you have to be steadfast. One is we're not giving up the winter session at this point. We still have an opportunity to save it. Many people at the Capitol meeting on Tuesday, I thought it was a smaller crowd, it was a good turnout, said things like, what am I going to do about, I have to prepare, my course for spring, I was planning on winter to do that, now spring is going to start on the 7th of January, how can I possibly do that? I actually, the old Billy Goat tonight, I'm actually going to prepare for a new course, I haven't tried it ever in spring, and I'm like, I myself, like, what am I going to do? Every one of you, Melissa wrote a wonderful letter to the board with her particular circumstances. If you all could do that, you have particular circumstances that are going to be inconvenient or you're going to suffer. I don't recommend untenured faculty, only tenured faculty. But you should write to the board and CC us. Or if you want to write to us, and we will pass it along to the board, but it works better if you go directly to the board and CC us, and we will just begin that collection because that is so important. The board relies on your silence and on your passivity. They really would like to label the union leadership as, well, they're the old type, they're going to continue to do their thing, they're just a couple of people who are not really representing the majority. I think, though, when I go on the campus, I hear people are angry, they're frustrated. State that in a letter to the board and CC us so we can have copies. That will be very important in the next 2 to 3 weeks. So try to do that within 7 days, say by a week from tomorrow. Because the October 1st is a deadline and we're just not quite sure. They set a couple of deadlines already and then you sort of pass them and then we went on. So we're trying to create a real understanding of the board's mind that Dr. Rocha has misled you. And he has. And some of the board members are beginning to question. Phil Thompson, why from Senator in South Pass, Belinda Brown, Golden Hill. There are a couple of people who are really taking a strong stand. So also, if you happen to live in their area, you have a special relationship, you should pursue them, as we will do. But we are only, the half dozen, 10 people who can, do only a few things. It has to also come from you.
Where can we get a list of email addresses, or can we post them someplace?
Right on the PCC website.
Okay, and we can send.
The board? Yeah. If you go to the board, on the first page, there's a box that says Board of Trustees. You click on that, and I believe it's the top one up there, or the second one that says board members or something. You click on that, and it's got all their emails.
Be prepared, however, that the very next email you get may be from Mark saying if you have a problem, email me, not the board.
Yeah, because he likes to filter.
Because we have heard that from several faculty members. So no, you are special but not alone. And we have also had faculty members have their Facebook monitored. So the email came from Mark CC to Gail saying, cease and desist because you're inciting student protest. So just know, this is what's happening here. So it's an attempt to silence us, censor us.
There's also a link on the new website. You can go on the old FA's website address. It looks different, it's in working progress, but you can also access it there soon, starting now, basically.
I've noticed a discrepancy between the actual email on the board that we get to them and what's posted. I've tried to, one board member has at Pasadena.edu, and that's been returned. I got another one with a board number at the MSN, and that's the one that I got through. But the posted email address for board members in some cases didn't work.
Then if you can give us the MSN address, we'll put it on our website, maybe to Melissa.
But also forward us the email that's sending it back, because if they're not working, if they're somehow filtering it, we need to know.
It would be really nice if the board had a one board email address to send to, and then also everybody's email address, but that's not
I think they're going to encourage, they don't want the input, so I don't think you're going to be able to do that.
I just want to emphasize that calendar is always a wedge issue.
that in terms of faculty, I mean, the discussion about how good it is for students needs to happen. There's no question about that. But as we've been saying, we have not gone through the process. And it is being used as a diversionary tactic to keep our minds off of these issues, which are all issues that we are all concerned about, which our fantastic negotiations team is advocating for us and all equal faculty on campus. And I think it's really important that we remember that it's a classic wedge issue in labor strife and negotiations. And it's really important that we stay unified because everybody has concerns about changes in calendar for various reasons. Some people might want the winter, some people might not want the winter, some people travel at this time of year, they do that at that time of year. And it's really crucial that we go through the process instead of having it be imposed on us to distract us from the most important labor issues that we need to think about.
Okay, then I just want to talk briefly about the calendar handout. There were, when the administration in the board packet on 8/15, they presented a bunch of information to try to convince the board that implementing this calendar was in the best interest of the students. They actually said at the top of the one document, this is best for students, faculty, and staff because they know best. Okay, and so one of the things that they provided, and I'm not going to go through this whole thing, but just for example, they had a page, it's the second page in that handout, their cost savings, okay? And if you take items 7, 8, and 9, which are about 50 to 60% of the savings, supposed savings, they have to do with the fact that there's going to be supposedly a longer summer break where there's no classes going on. But in the pamphlet that they handed out, they said there was going to be a first summer session and then a second summer session. And the second summer session ended on August 2nd, which is exactly the same day that our current calendar ends on. So 60% of their savings due to this extra long break with no classes, either this is right or they're right. So maybe they're just telling us there's going to be a second session and there's not going to be a second session, or they're not going to have the savings, but they can't have both. Okay? That's just one example of the type of stuff that they put out to the board in claiming their savings. The other thing they mentioned numerous times, they took 15 or 20 minutes at the board to explain to the board that with this new calendar they would have flexibility, because if you start your classes before June 30th, the end of the fiscal year, and the end after July 1, the next fiscal year, you can use the FTES for either last year or this year. That gives you lots of flexibility, and they're right. The only problem with that argument is our current calendar does it exactly that same way for exactly that reason. We start summer school before June 30th every year, and it ends after July 1. So that you can use the FTES in summer for either last year or this year. So there's no advantage to this new calendar in the flexibility of using FTES. And so we've gone through and just created a bunch of questions based on their document. You can look at their document, and then you can look at the question that it raises and see whether you think that they have a good argument for this new trimester.
I believe it was Karen who mentioned the students. And I just want to say, the students at the Board of Trustees meetings have been positively heroic. 2 board meetings ago at the CEC, the board blocked out students, faculty, community members. The room was not overcrowded. It was not a fire hazard. The police acted, in my opinion, irresponsibly. The police overreacted. One of our faculty members was actually hit by police. One of our students was arrested. The Board of Trustees at that meeting did not give out yellow cards when people requested them, arguing or saying that there were not enough cards. Some people who signed yellow cards for public speaking were told that those cards were lost. And so we're asking, what does one do when normal, civil rules of exchange and dialogue are blocked by those in authority. I come from the Martin Luther King era, and I do believe in civil disobedience when appropriate. And our students have participated in forms of civil disobedience when their voices have been stifled and censored and silenced through normal channels. And I want us as faculty to appreciate their heroic and their noble efforts. Faculty, we don't usually do that kind of thing. We're a little nervous about it, and we're not so sure about it. But I would urge all of you to really look at the students as your allies. It is their campus. We are supposedly about the students. And Lawrence Gondaras, he was arrested. We are handling some of the legal affairs and building a legal case for Lawrence. And the students are meeting tonight, as I understand, associate students are meeting about the issues of calendar and related events. And so Lawrence is going to say 30 seconds who you are, and we're going to let that go.
Question right here.
Yes.
Okay, say the faculty are successful in maintaining the winter intercession. Are you going to be pushing to beef up that winter? Because winter is very small and does not serve that many students. And then a lot of students are stuck out of there with no class from December 14th till the end of February. So is that the plan, to beef up winter? Because if you're not planning on beefing up winter, then you might as well get rid of it.
Well, one of the issues is the whole year classes are being cut at according to Bob, 578 sections. And so the fight is not just winter, as people have said, although it's a very vital part of the piece of the puzzle. It's about how many sections are offered in any given session. You're absolutely right. Thank you. But I want to introduce Lawrence because his name may come up. He actually he has a case against him. Lawrence, you want to say a few words?
Yes, really quick. Good afternoon, everybody. As you already know, I was arrested about 2 board of proceedings ago, and unjustly, I was falsely accused of. First, in one article says I punched an officer, in another article says I hit him twice, and it's just now there's mixed stories. And I just transferred here. I was a student here. I needed winter. So, I mean, cutting it out completely doesn't make sense. I've talked to other students who are still, concerned about this, and they need the winter too. Yeah, beefing it up, I'm for that too, but cutting it out completely, that's, for a lot of students, that's not an option. I just want to say a while ago, now I'm on the front page again, and it's just unfortunate the way I have kids demeaning, it's just really sad, my parents who have family issues have to see this now too. So I have to go back and explain what I was doing and what, why the actions that happened, why they happened. But I want to mention a couple of papers ago, a couple of years ago, I think, I was in the front of the paper and it said, when will these cuts stop when students fall back? I've been thinking about that now, and I was wrong at that point. I was really wrong. Because it's not only students, it's students, faculties, and workers. And we really need the unity, the solidarity to do this. All of you are fighting for your jobs, I'm fighting for my future. A lot of you have already gone through the process that I'm going through. So I need to get there, and I know it's scary. I was in jail, fingerprinted, it was very demeaning. But I stood up because it's the right thing to do. And I hope that all of you can do that with the students. Thank you. Thank you.
We have just a minute, responses, discussion. The thing about what can you do, really, we want you to write letters to the board or emails and CC them to us so that we have running copies and we're assured of the list. The second thing is, I would say talk to your students. The students really have convinced me that we need to keep this fight up, not just for part-time faculty who lose their jobs or for full-time faculty who may have certain cuts. Thirdly, we are going to send out a request for your input next week, and certain things will be listed. Do you favor, for example, a vote of no confidence? Do you favor, if winter is cut and other circumstances fall into place, some kind of job action, some kind of one-day walkout, etc.? And so we do want you to respond to that. We're not quite sure where everyone is at, but we do want to maintain, we want to be steadfast. This is really our college. We're losing shared governance. We're losing contractual legalities. All of this is being torn up, and we're only as strong as our ability to fight such measures. So thank you very much for coming, and we will continue this fight. Thank you very much.